Or we can move to the panel also. We can discuss as a panel more of the
so
things.
let's wait for 1 minute.
Yeah.
And otherwise, we can jump into the panel. Yeah, they are waiting for the panel. So let's go to the panel. So I would like to invite our speakers and also the later speakers like Motaz, Dennis to join the panel, plus Ali, Frederick. So Frederick, Ali, Dennis, Motaz, Demetrius.
It is a question about the one I mentioned, 5D, 6D, 7D.
What's the answer? Your answer, Demetrius?
I think probably people you're laughing that I was joking, but no, it is the reality. So the 5D is when also the stage is moving, and this is how they call it 5D. Yeah. Just clarify. I'm not saying if I agree or disagree with this. I just mentioned what has been reported in the literature. So the 5D is when it's moving. So this will be the 4D, and the 5D will be your like the 4D printing application on that. Now the 60 and 70. So the 60 is when you're including also the machine learning insights. So at the same time, your system is smart and is changing the designs on that. So we can be printing it according to any issues making when it's printing it. And the 70 is when you're including the sustainability on application insight. So you're reusing all the materials at the same on that. Now the 80 is something new, and you have to wait about our paper on that to learn about what it is, what else we're introducing to call it 80 printing. Of course, as my student said, we can call it infinite printer, because you can put any aspects you want inside and building more and more things on that.
Yeah, thank you. So let's go to the Padlet. We have some questions in the Padlet, and we can provide some answers. So I'm on the Padlet, and the first question is, can you describe potential synergies between 4D printing and new technologies like Internet of Things, IoT, and AI, and how these collaborations may yield advanced adaptive products? So, yeah, what would be your comments? Hands up if you want to start with.
If you like, I can start.
Yeah, Fred, go ahead.
IoT could be interesting to control, let's say, the stimulation. So as far as I know, all the proof of concept provided through the literature, focus only on the structure, on the printed structure, and the stimulation, it outside of the box. So the idea, if we want to, let's say, develop application, or if you want, let's say, to meet industry expectation, we have to include stimulation. So the volume of the stimulator should be included into the structure, or let's say control from, let's say, IoT. So if we want to control the structure with IoT, you have to implement, let's say, some small device into the structure. So this could be interesting, let's say, in order to increase the sensitivity of the material, since you will, let's say, stimulate the structure locally, internally. And what is interesting also with IoT is to get feedback. So, for example, if you want to implement smart system in space, you will probably use free energy like thermal energy, and but how to check if the actuator has reached a target? So the idea is to get this information.
Yep, correct. And I know Frederick and Ali use AI already in their work. But Dennis, Demetrius, Motaz, do you use IoT or AI in your 4D printing kind of activities?
In our lab, we don't use it at the moment. Hello, everyone. I'm Dennis. We don't use it at the moment. We plan to use it, but particularly in our case, I mean, for pharmaceutics, it sounded new, and you need strong expertise, and also there are so many variables that you have to incorporate. So it's not going to be straightforward to use, and you need to gather a lot of data to make it work. So and also what is important is you need somebody who is dedicated to work in that application. So currently we don't use it in our lab.
Okay, brilliant. What
We use
others?
machine learning mainly, so it is there is AI if you think about it also on that, and we're using it, as I mentioned, to understand what stimulus we need to change for the 4D printing and what designs needs to be changed, because it depends on the shape. So if you think about also cardiovascular applications at the same time, like stents and all of these, so you need to have a different designs depending on the patients on that. And if we want to make sure also we have more bespoke and personalized on that, so it's another aspect that you can put with the AI to understand what medications you need to put on this for all those parameters.
Correct. Motaz, please share your thoughts. You are on mute.
We've been using AI in the form of machine learning for quite a long time, but that's in particular to optimize the process. So if you try to manufacture using additive manufacturing with metallic materials, it can be quite a challenge. There are lots of variables, the process parameters, the material variables, and the microstructure. But the thing is that I want us to try to come to the important point here. Sometimes the term AI and machine learning can be, just it sounds like the hype, and that's why people like to use it a lot. And there was, if I can share for a second, just something that Elon Musk was putting like a few weeks back when he put this comic where basically it says, "Hey, artificial intelligence, why do you always wear this mask?" And it's basically statistics. So, and we have been doing that for a very long time, since the time of design of experiments, Douglas Montgomery and design of experiments, his work, and other people. So I think it's just the name. Sometimes it's that people are talking about, but we probably have been using it for a very long time without realizing.
Yeah, correct. And also, I think when it comes to the 4D bioprinting, even printing the bioreactors, we use AI linked with the IoT to monitor the process, especially tissue engineering process. So let's go to the second question. Are there applications of AI in mitigating the time and resources demands for simulation for 4D printing? I think the answer is yes, but can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I may start.
Yep.
Yeah, I think as Motaz said as well, we can use the AI, I think, for the 4D printing to accelerate the design and the modeling. And this is the thing we are doing now, is like the statistics, like earlier we said the machine learning, evolutionary algorithm is some sort of the gradient-based optimization, but it's not going to help us in order to achieve the data. In order to get enough data, good data, high quality data, we cannot find a loophole from doing the experiment in the lab. We need to do the 3D printing, testing different materials, testing different printing parameters. These sort of the things we cannot just use the AI in order to do that. So we need, because it's highly nonlinear, the 4D printing, because of the multi-physics involved, especially for the soft robotic aspects. When we are using soft robotic, is already because of that hyperelasticity, viscoelasticity is the nonlinear, and the control of that is adding another more nonlinearity and complexity. And when it comes to the 4D printing, we are having that printing processing parameters as well. They have some sort of nonlinearity. So we have like the hyper data that we need to achieve those data. This is the thing I think we need to do in our labs, and that we cannot do it using AI. But the AI just helping us with reducing the iteration during the design, I believe, at this stage. Is reducing the design iteration, that helping in the design part, but not doing the experiment and the data and nonlinearity of the parameters we need to find from the experiments in the 4D printing.
Thank you, Ali. Any other comments, thoughts on that? No. Okay, let's go to the
My
Fred,
point.
go ahead.
like, I think that AI can be useful for in a multiple way for additive manufacturing and for 4D printing. So if you want to discover material, if you want to develop all the experiments, it would take, let's say, more than 1 century. So AI can be useful in order to reduce material waste. You can also implement AI in order to find the appropriate printing parameters. And you can also use AI to find material distribution. As an example, if you want to build a small structure composed, let's say, of 2 or 3 materials, you will generate an infinite set of solutions. And if you introduce simulation as a new parameters, probably you will have solution more than atoms in the universe. So this means that AI has limitation, and 4D printing is limited by this kind of combinatorial problem. So AI can be used. Okay, we can, let's say, we can apply different strategy with AI. If you work with small data, probably you have to use physical laws. So with informed machine learning, if you have big data, you can use, let's say, traditional machine learning algorithm or models. What would be interesting for the 4D printing society is to combine all our data into a specific database to build. So one single database for the community. And okay, you can run several ML model on it. It would probably be better or be more efficient for the community.
Okay, brilliant. I think that's also related to the next question. How does 4D printing impact the environment compared to the 3D printing? What do you think? Dimitris already.
Yeah, I was going to unmute myself. Either it's a 3D printer, 4D printer, or other manufacturing method, we have to think about the sustainability. It's not like it's different from here. For 4D printing, of course, we need to have the smart materials. So when we using those materials or synthesizing those materials, let's make sure that we can reuse them, or we can also, they're more environmental friendly materials. To be honest, most of the materials for pharmaceutical tissue engineering applications I've seen for 4D printing, they are biocompatible and they are environmental friendly, and you're not using very toxic solvents, or you can use less toxic. You can find a very nice database of solvent toxicity and how sustainable are online on the societies, and then you can choose to investigate other, like, okay, water, you can do that, but you can also use other solvents that they're not that toxic and not that bad for the environment. All this technology is 3D printing for the additive manufacturing. It is more eco-friendly if we feel it, if you think about it, but it will be eco-friendly only if we make them on this. Like we talked about before, I mentioned about the CO2, it's like also energy consumption. It depends on the printers. It depends how often you use them, your materials and your applications. There is a lot of considerations about that. Pharma is still early discussions for them for sustainability, but it's there because now everybody talks about sustainability. All the regulatory bodies ask about sustainability. All the funders asking about sustainability. So now people has start putting sustainability inside their thoughts.
Okay, thanks, Dimitris. Yeah, Dennis, go ahead.
Can I add a couple of words on the impact for at least on pharmaceuticals, because we work with some companies. The major benefit that you see, at least from pharmaceutical industry and the impact on the environment, is that by using 3D printers, you can have what we call print on demand. But that means that you're going to reduce your batch manufacturing only to necessary numbers that you need. For example, if you put a printer in the hospital, you're going to print the exact doses only for, let's say, 100 patients or 50 patients, depends on how many of them are in the ward. So in that sense, you don't waste any material, and the energy consumption or whatever you want to, the energy consumption and the waste are reduced to the minimum. Also, the aim of these manufacturing is that to minimize the amount that you use per day, and only then meet the needs of the patient. So I would say you reduce the waste of the material, the energy consumption, and the footprint of the 3D printers. There are a couple of studies that they have a small footprint and impact on generation of CO2. So that's from the pharmaceutical point of view.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Okay, so let's see the final question for this panel. Oh, we have 2 more questions. So could you please elaborate on the legal and IP considerations unique to 4D printing? Who's gonna start?
Yeah. I
I think
yeah.
IP will be. Oh, sorry, Ali, please.
Yeah, no, go ahead, please, go ahead.
No, say probably for 4D printing will be the materials you use, and it will be the biomaterials mainly that you have to think about the IP on that. And of course, it depends on your designs. If you design something unique design, like we have seen that with the microfluidic device and chips, that we can patent those. But of course, for 3D printing or 4D printing, it will be slightly different or patent those designs, but you can still patent those, because we're looking currently for ISO standards for 4D designs, ISO standard, and this is what we prepare in the panel at the moment. The BSI panel is preparing. Sorry, Ali, please.
No, wait, thank you. I think Muataz are gonna talk to. I think the time factor is important. I'm not really experienced in terms of the patenting, but I was wondering how we can bring that time factor compared to the 3D printing, because how much you're going to apply the stimuli, like the electricity heat. If you apply 30 seconds, is different from what you get from you apply 1 minute or 2 minutes. And that could be some interesting factor to bring into the patent. I think that makes some conflict. And as Dimitri said, another one is the ethics that we have for this bioprinting, bio 4D printings. And indeed, it's something interdisciplinary. It's hyper interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary, and distinguish between different disciplines and the innovation that you have in either mechanical part or materials or electronics. These sort of the things should be, I think, will elaborate and more discussed in terms of the IP and patent.
Thanks, Ali. Muataz, please. You're on mute.
Patenting things in additive manufacturing people have been pushing it a lot with different companies and so on, but it can be also challenging. Like sometimes you cannot patent the material itself. The parameters is not so much. People patent a very wide parameters range, basically, which doesn't really sometimes work, and it would get shot down usually by the patent attorneys or so on. I tried before to patent some of the work we did on 3D printing of stents, but it couldn't progress because the challenge is, if whatever you're proposing, people can claim that certain elements of it are patented elsewhere. So you patented the material, you patented powder bed fusion, you patented the design process, and you obviously cannot patent the software, so or a code that you've used. So I think we need to be a little bit pragmatic about patenting. I mean, at the end of the day, it's only the patent lawyers who make the money from patenting and those who sue each other, which is not going to be us, the academics. So we can just, either use it in practical applications or just publish it. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Because the integration of 3D and small materials, and both of them are already patented. So yeah.
Dennis has experience of that. I think he can say more about the pattern of these applications. Dennis.
Yeah, we became an expert at the other day because we had to work with a few companies, and I just want to add what Muataz says. The patent is all about the art to define your claims. If your claims are well designed and they don't refer to any other existing patent or any publication, then you can get away. It's completely different from the publications. Because we work also on stents, one of the claims, give an example, and the examiners always get back to us. In one of the claims, you have to define what the stent is, or describe the stent as a tubular material. I will show you later in my presentation. But if you try to do that in a claim, because you have to define what is the patent about, then always the examiner will get back and say, this definition has been given by another 10 patents. So he will take out your first claim on stent. We had this problem as well. and then all the rest of them they will collapse because you don't define what is your major invention. And also there's a thing about the obviousness or the state of the art in the pen that you have to address. So that basically, that in simple words means that if somebody who has a good knowledge on 3D printing can can produce whatever you produce very simply without any thought, then immediately there's no novelty, and it's very obvious to somebody who has a basic expertise on 3D printing. So you have to convince the examiners, because this is all about the examiners, that whatever you did is unique. And the other thing that Motaz mentioned is that for some reason, and this is my experience from large organizations, they allow these organizations to have a broad patent, a broad claim. So they cover the whole range, despite the fact that they don't have any data to prove. So from the whole claim or the area they cover, it might be a very narrow space where this works. And then you have to prove, which is very difficult because it's already in a patent, that this is the area and these are the evidence we have, which is completely different from what the other people claim. Coming back to summarize on patents, it's a kind of art of how to design your claim. Like we said, we mentioned before, there's a list that can do that for you because you have to combine the scientific knowledge with the wording which is specific for patents. So this is my opinion.
Thank you so much. Wael has a question, I think, from the audience. Wael, go ahead, please.
Yes. Okay, so very interesting discussion actually on the IP. I had before some interaction with filing for an IP, especially in the 3D printing industry. And one of the routes, especially if you're coming from academia, is to make sure that you have the IP there, not because of you're afraid of breaking it or someone might use it, but big companies, for example, like EOS, if you come up with an idea for a 4D printer or anything like that, they will be interested in buying it from you, even if it's just a demonstrator, even if it's just an idea. And that's how universities and centers could actually make big bucks, big money out of just ideas. But the other way of thinking of IPs, which I think what you guys have been discussing, is using it so that maybe someone out there can try to do some infringement and then you get some extra bucks out of it. Now, that's the hard way of utilizing an IP. But if the technology is new, if the technology is novel, the big companies will be more than interested in taking this technology under their arm, by which they will go and reward the innovators and the researchers who worked on that. And most of them, they're basically going to be in the university. That's just on that discussion, but I have another question just related to metrology of 3D printing and 4D printing. Obviously, you come up with a technology and then you test it later on. Have anyone thought about inline measurements for a 3D printer or a 4D printer, and how can that actually work, save you in the time that you do, and then reduce your scrap at the end, because you would be monitoring the process as it goes, be monitoring certain parameters, or you're actually going to be doing 3D scanning in real time and processing it.
Well,
Thank you so
mentioned
much,
that. I mentioned that in my presentation. Also, we do this quality is the most important. And for
Yes.
example, in our lab, we have a thermocamera, we have a Raman probe, we have NIR probe and mid-IR probe. So we have all the PET technologies that is in a line or at line, if you want to call it, or anything. So that's in process. And that's why one of the Ds there, like for example, the 6D that is about the machine learning, is about getting all this multiple analysis and feeding them in your software in the printers, and then the change in the designs or any other printing like speed or temperature, all of that. And that is also by using the machine learning combination for this, say, 6D printing. So all those, they are being used in a lot of our labs currently.
That's amazing. Obviously, a thermal camera can actually give you a good idea about the heat distribution and all. But have anyone thought about having access to the 3D geometry of the pattern of the part itself? and how it would interfere. For example, if you're using metal or you're using a polymer, your measurement technology would have to be different. So getting to know a 3D the 3D shape, having a 3D point cloud or 3D scanned part from your process itself would actually go a long way. I appreciate the thermal cameras. I appreciate sometimes people use a scanning and probe heads as well, but that doesn't create a 3D model. One of the technologies that we've basically looked at before is how we can use fringe projection or a photogrammetry system and integrate it with a particular SLS machine or SLA machine, and that would help you basically get 3D point cloud of each layer, and you would know exactly where the defect happened, what you can change in terms of the parameters. So this is one of the things that we work towards, integrating it fully with a 3D printer, and wanted to just discuss how can that help in the realm of 4D printing.
Thank you.
In the case of, thank you, El, for the question. Nice to meet you in virtually at least.
Nice to meet you, yes.
In our metal additive manufacturing machines, we do have cameras that take images of every layer. You're always restricted on the quality of the camera. So if you go for a high megapixels camera, then you're generating a lot of data and can end up being terabytes because every layer is like 40 microns. The problem is what's going to happen at the end of the day when you sit through the data to look into the build data and try to reconstruct a 3D model to see the shape, how it looks like, and so on. From the industry, from what I've seen from industry, they just want a trouble-free build, basically a build that has not been interrupted from start to end. Whereas if they have to go through the data, that adds another job to them. They want just to be able to print and sell and know that the build went straight away without a problem. There was some other companies that linked their machines to AI codes, and let's call it AI, that pick information from all the sensors on the machine. So temperature sensors, gas sensors, if it's metal, electrical sensors. And basically they are trying to look for irregularities in the signal. So if everything is going fine throughout the build, then they would say, this is a good build, please proceed. Don't even bother looking into the data that comes out of it.
Yeah.
The problem is, from what I'm seeing, especially in the aerospace and space sector, you know that if you build a component in the aerospace sector, you need to store the data of the manufacturing process for at least 25 years for legal reasons. Yep. Because one day, if a crash happens, they have to extract all the information on that component. Everybody's worried about having to store terabytes of data going forward. So yes, you can measure thermal, you can measure images, you can also there are some very good NDE systems with eddy current, with ultrasonic, with phased array inspection and so on, which can be happening with every layer you print in the case of metals. But from my experience, people would want to have them only, or they will access this data only if the build is interrupted, if something went wrong. Whereas if the build went from start to end without a problem, they would just say, fantastic, good job, let's move to the next one.
Yeah, thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, Motaz. I think that's that. Thank you.